Yeah, g'day, Joe.
I don't.
It's, I guess, just under a week of training. How have you found it? You got a team in mind for next week? Have you got that far?
No, but I've loved it. It's the bit of the job that I really enjoy, and I've enjoyed the enthusiasm of the players. And you've always got to be a little bit optimistic, but I'm optimistic with the way they've come together. They're a good group of young men, I think.
We've seen your selection, obviously. Can you give us an insight in how you want to play the game with the Wallabies? In in the first test and then beyond.
Yeah, even in the broader selection, Pato, I think there's a few different ways you can play. We've got some different size blokes who are able to play the way that they best play. We'd obviously like to be able to play with some tempo, and I don't think that will surprise anyone. I think it's the way that the players like to play the game, and you want players to enjoy playing, and that would obviously be part of it.
We obviously saw you achieve great success with Ireland, and you built a particular style there. But it's not to say you will look to apply those same principles with Australia, or some of them, or none of them, or.
Yeah, it's all, everything's a hybrid. Tends to be, last 2 years with the All Blacks, it was different again, because you just want to try to get the best out of your individual players in some sort of collective game model that they're all invigorated by, but also plays to their strengths as best it can. And I'm still learning what those strengths are, Pato, so I'm not going to say that we've arrived at a way to play that's going to be successful, because that's going to take one more week, hopefully, and then we can put something together next Saturday.
Hey Joe, I just wanted to get your thoughts on Tom Liner. I guess only one full season into his career and already into the mix here. Just can you walk us through what you saw of him throughout the season that's earned this chance? And I guess being so young, is he still a very much a genuine chance to get that 10 jumper, or is it more of a long-term exposure thing, and then that tempo you spoke about wanting to play with maybe makes someone more experienced or like a Noah more likely for that job?
Well, I think Tom's got all the attributes, and if you want to play with tempo, it's always good to have a 10 who is, A, he's courageous, he'll take the line on, B, he's got good foot speed, C, he's got a good passing game, and I really like his long kicking game for the size of him. He can put the ball down the field, which some of the time you need to be able to get some oxygen in and find some grass, hopefully. So he's got the full spectrum there. If you'd seen his tackle on Lukan Salakaia-Lotto today, when Lukan squared up and went square at him, he doesn't lack for courage there, and he did a really good job of hanging in the tackle. So that all those attributes. Probably the one thing for Tom will be getting his confidence and his ability to communicate and make decisions and demand reactions from the players around him.
And I guess with when it comes to club combinations coming into this environment as well, like, obviously haven't picked the team yet, but Hunter Baisami at 12 there's had an incredible year, and him and Tommy had a really strong combination there. Do you look at pre-existing combinations heading into selection, or is the test environment a bit too different to be able to judge it off that?
Yeah, it's both those things. Definitely look at the cohesion that players may have, having played together before, but also trying to probably best prepare yourself with the best players who have some sort of best preparation for test arena. And you're never going to get that perfect, because some people are going to be making debuts at some stage, and they're not necessarily best prepared, but that's part of our job, is to try to get them as ready as we can.
I just wanted to ask about Timmy Ryan as well, because I know after his debut you were asked about him in Sydney and spoke quite excitedly about what he can offer, and then I guess had a really strong season but still very young and not in the squad here. Was he close, or was it a bit too early for someone like him to be thrown into this mix?
Yeah, I met with Tim for 20 minutes, half an hour this week. So, had a good conversation with Les Kiss around Tim as well, and what's probably best for Tim at the moment. Massive breakout season, but he's a raw kid who is very lean, and I just think if I wouldn't be averse to bringing him into a squad at all. I just think if there is a window where we can get some physical development into him, just so he's better prepared. I think we're trying to make sure that we have got players who are prepared before they come in. A lot of his game sense and a lot of his natural instinctive play is fantastic to watch already.
He doesn't like to score a try in the same way either, from what I've seen, and there's been a lot of them, so that must be exciting from your point of view.
Yeah. There's a bit of rinse and repeat, which I like though, in that he uses speed to score. He comes from long support lines to score. He goes up in the air over the top of other players to score, and he chases balls through to score. So that I think I showed Tim all those things on Tuesday evening when we were chatting. So he's a guy that we're interested in for the future. And there's a number of players that haven't been named in the squad, but we've met with and chatted to and probably just given a little bit of feedback to for the future.
Hey Joe, it's your third international kind of job, and you started with Ireland just over a decade ago. How much more prepared and how helpful was it having had the experience? And even though they're completely different systems, how much better prepared are you heading into a Wallabies head coaching role on the cusp of, you only got them for 10 days or something before a test?
Yeah, I've never been so unprepared, to be fair. This is the one time I've got to meet all these players, and in those previous roles I'd had 3 years with Leinster, and I knew a greater proportion of that squad. Before the All Blacks I had the Blues, and so it's a little bit daunting, to be honest, but if I wasn't nervous, I don't think I'd be on the edge doing my job right. So I'm happy to be nervous, because it just encourages me to work a bit harder and engage a bit quicker and a bit more often with the players, so that we can try to be on the same page. One thing I would say is I've got real confidence in our coaching group. Laurie ran a lot of today's session with the defence, and he's a ball of energy, and he's a catalyst for enthusiastic contribution, and did a really good job of today's session. And around the edges, the unit session yesterday, I love the way Mike Cron and Jeff Parling have combined to deliver and demand what they have from the big boys up front. And Owen Toolan is just chipping away on some of the skilled tidy ups we think that can make a difference for our backs particularly.
I'm sure you'll be able to answer this question better in a year or 2 or 3 years, but Eddie late last year, on the Stand documentary, at the end of the World Cup campaign, pulled James Slipper aside, and he was caught talking about the fact that Wales is so much hardened because of how long they could play their domestic seasons, and he was saying that Australian rugby players and the Wallabies weren't hard enough in terms of conditioning and test match ready. Do you feel like, from your early observations, where do you sit on that, kind of heading into your tenure with Aussie Rugby and the Wallabies?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Eddie had more time with them at that stage than I've had, so I don't know them as well. But as I said, I've been really impressed with the enthusiasm and the willingness to take on ideas. I think there's a real growth mindset within the group, and that's very much a shared mindset. So when you've got that, I think it allows the ideas to be implemented. but to actually then deliver them in the physical contest that Test match footy is, the next 3 weeks we'll know more, I think.
Yeah, hey Joe. Obviously, haven't named a captain yet. Are you going to wait right until team naming day to do so? And also, what have you seen from a leadership point of view in those 4 days so far?
Yeah, we've got a real mix of leaders within the group, and what I have seen has been really encouraging. You know, there's guys who've got good experience, there's guys who lead by example, and there's guys who speak well. So, and I'm just getting to know them. So the complication for me is just, first of all, I think it's easier to select that first captain once you've selected your team to make sure they're a starting player, and then from there, you know, I think you gauge how well they go, and we just progress through this first 3 week block. Probably there'll be a little bit of movement in the side. I'm pretty sure that we'll use more than just 15 of the same starters, so there could be you know, a different captain for 1 or 2 of the tests, and that will also allow us to just experiment a little bit. But you can't experiment too much when you've got a team like Wales coming, because, you know, and their leadership is strong with guys like Dewey Lake and Aaron Wainwright and Dafford Jenkins, Corey Hill coming back in there. They've got lots of experience with guys who lead. So I think that in itself is a really good challenge for our boys to demonstrate their self-leadership and for the individual leaders to stand up.
Got time for a couple more. Thanks, guys.
With Ireland, you had you drew heavily on that Leinster core for a long time, which was very, very successful. Do you see an opportunity to do the same, something similar, maybe not to the same extent, with the Brumbies contingent?
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it too much. We're pretty collective in how we selected and in what we've done so far. So there's been certainly nothing intentional about drawing heavily on one particular group of players who play a certain way, because I'm not sure. I know that there are things that we'll do differently from the Brumbies, but yeah, I think the comfort I had with, as you mentioned, Leinster, is that I'd actually just come out of coaching that, so a lot of the continuity of expectation was there, where you know, I really like some of the things that Steve Larkin, Benny Mowen, Rob Side do in the Brumbies, but you know, a lot of probably Brumby consistency will come through Laurie Fisher, because he's about as Canberra as you can get.
Joe, sorry mate, my audio played up a bit for Pato's first question, so sorry if I'm going over the same topic. But what did you make of the Blues' sort of power, sort of pick and go sort of success this year? Is that something you think the All Blacks and other international teams might employ, and is a style that you're interested in for the Wallabies at all?
Well, I coached a number of years with Vern Cotter, and you know, VC he loves a little bit of the pick and go game, and when we were coaching together in Bay of Plenty or Claremont, you know, it was certainly part of the armoury that we had, and we had some very effective boys at doing it. You know, Tom and Domingo and Elvis Vermeulen, Mario Ledesma. We had a pack that were very adept at doing it, and I think the Blues have got a pack that's very adept at doing it. But it's not just their pack. You know, you get Caleb Clark picking and going. He's so dynamic. He's quick. He's 108 athletic kilos. Mark Talia, you know, he is so slippery in the way he can step and slide through. So they had a confrontational style that was very dynamic. It wasn't like a slow pick and go or setting up pods to pick and go. It was very, very dynamic and hard to stop, wasn't it?
Joe, just on that connection piece, how important is it just not only building it within the sort of playing group, but to those that have worn the jersey before, noting guys like, Todd Kefu, George Schmidt, James Hall, Ben sort of can't speak to the guys?
Yeah, that was great yesterday, having those guys at lunch. I know, I had quite a long chat with George. The last time I think I was with him, we were having cocktails in Limerick, which was, just, I don't know what you're doing having cocktails in Limerick when there's Guinness on tap. But he's just got no ego, George. He's just so down to earth. And it's the same with all those guys. Kev, I've worked a fair bit with Kev in terms of coaching, and he's such a kind of a low level character in terms of no self promotion, no ego whatsoever, and Slacky and Paul McLean. I've had a coffee with them every time I've been in Brisbane. They're just great guys to talk about the connection piece around rugby. And James I don't know so well, so it's great to get him in and meet him. He's a big lad, I would say that. I did ask him if he's available, but I think he's retired.
Last one, thanks guys.
Can I maybe finish, Joe, with your thoughts on Wales? They had a pretty unhappy Six Nations, and then they were beaten by the Springboks again at the weekend. They named a squad. Just your overall thoughts. They'll be pretty desperate, like you, I suppose, to get the train back on the road.
Yeah, I think Wales will be super tough. They lost 14-12 to a really good England side. The French game, it looks like quite a big score, but if you watch that game, up to the 60th minute, that's anyone's game. So I know scores didn't work out for them, and they lost to Italy, but the Italian game, that was so nip and tuck right till the finish. So sometimes coming out on the wrong side of the scoreboard doesn't reflect how tight the game was, and so there's obviously the recent history of the 40 points to 6 that they put on the Wallabies last time they played them. That will give them the confidence that if they feel they can put their game together, they'll get some guys back in from that South African game, and that will strengthen their side, I think. And it's a bit like that with the South African game as well. They struggled early, they got an early yellow card, and yet they were still only a point down at half time. So they just don't know how to go away, Wales. They are very combative.